It's my distinct honor to introduce General Marks this morning. Most of the speakers that we have up here are public servants, and of course, at least in my view, the greatest public service that you can have is someone who puts on the uniform of our country. And General Marks did that for over 30 years. He held command positions. Well, he was first educated, of course, at taxpayer expense at the United States Military Academy in West Point, New York. He commanded soldiers from second lieutenant to being a major general. Some of the units that he had command positions in are such storied units as the 101st Airborne, the 82nd Airborne, the 7th Infantry Division, the 6th Infantry Division. He was also the commanding general at the Army Intelligence Center. And he's a master parachutist. And he actually holds airborne wings from two of our former allies, Canada and Korea. He's an honor graduate of the U.S. Army Ranger School. He's also a colleague of mine at Academy Securities. And if you were watching last night on CNN, he appears there frequently. We do really have to thank the Korean leader and, of course, our president for having the historic summit the day before he is here to speak. He served as head of military intelligence. General Marks served as head of military intelligence on the peninsula during his service. And he's here to talk about his service there, his knowledge of what's going on in Korea and throughout the world, as you can see. General Spider Marks.
Folks, first of all, quick warning, I am incapable of standing behind a podium and chatting, so I'll be moving around the room, and if it's not picked up on sound, that's your problem. Seriously, I got to move. I can't do this. Let me start by saying it's very, my bride of 41 years, a couple days ago, all in a row, no breaks in service, same woman, 41 years. She routinely gives me counsel, which I need, and she often tells me, because she knows who I am, she goes, look, never follow Pavarotti. Well, I think this morning I'm following Pavarotti. Tiara was just phenomenal when she did the national anthem. Wasn't that great? That was super. What a beautiful young lady. So along those lines, seriously, as I was packing to come on this trip, let me back up a little bit. I have 3 daughters, so I have no life, and I have no space in my house. I was raised as a military kid. Moved every couple of years, and my mom had this rule that once we got someplace, we'd get the house set up as quickly as possible, but you could keep a couple of boxes packed, because as soon as we settled in, we were going to move. So you could keep a couple of boxes and stick them right there. As long as they were neat and squared away, you're good to go. So we did that. So that's kind of how then I subjected my family to that. We moved a number of times. I think my girls, before they graduated from high school, they all went to 3 high schools, and I think they moved probably 12 times before 18, and then they headed out the door. So we had the same rule. So I've got, still to this day, a couple boxes, and I have a tiny little cubby in our master bedroom where I'm allowed to keep stuff. That's it. That's my space. Everything else is occupied by somebody else. So I'm in this little space, doing my thing, I'm packing, and I see a couple boxes, and they're there, but I see a box I hadn't seen before, so I open this thing. It's a little shoe box, and I open this thing up, and I go, holy moly. There are 3 eggs in this box, 3 eggs, and then a roll of 100s and 20s with tape and rubber band around, like, what is this? And so I went to Marty, and I said, sweetheart, I grabbed one of these boxes, and she said, oh, yeah. And I said, well, sweetheart, what's the deal with this box? What's the deal with these eggs? And she said, well, I know you're going to have a public speaking event. It's always a bit risky with you at public speaking events because you go into cul-de-sacs and you will often blow it. And you've done that thousands of times, and every time you've blown it, I've stuck an egg in the box. A whole lot, 41 years of marriage, thousands. I got 3 eggs. I'm going to Cooperstown. I mean, this is Hall of Fame material. 3 eggs. And I said, well, got it. Thank you very much, sweetheart. I appreciate the criticism, but what's with the money? She said, oh, the money. Yeah. Every time I got a dozen, I sold them. So I don't want to lay an egg today. Let me start by saying thank you. Jennifer, it's great to see you again. We served together in the 101st Air Assault. John Moseth, great to see you, brother, 101st. Lifelong buddy, lives here in Chicago. Big-time rugby player, wonderful guy. You knew that you were moving in the right direction when Moseth joined the scrum. We were moving down the field. So God bless you, man. Great to see you. Bragg, my new best buddy. Nice to meet you. Cool. Special Forces soldier, severely wounded in combat. God bless you. Thanks for being here. Cool. And also my teammates over here. We got Spencer, we got Greg, we got Frank. Where's Beth? Beth is there. There we go. Thank you very much. Let me take 2 seconds while I'm still here by a microphone, so I don't want to have this garbled. I'm here at the invitation of Frank and the City Club, so thank you very much. This really wonderful invitation. But I'm here because Frank invited me. I am the head of geopolitical strategy, whatever, of Academy Securities. But let me tell you about Academy Securities. Academy Securities is a bank, and it's a service-disabled, veteran-owned, small business bank, broker-dealers. I was working in New York City post-service to nation. I told Ed I don't use the word retire. It says retired right there, and I got to get rid of that, because that's just a bunch of BS. I started the conversation by saying I have 3 daughters, so I'm not going to retire. So I was working in New York City, and through some colleagues, I met this young man named Chance Mims, Naval Academy combat veteran, a guy named Phil McConkey. Maybe you Chicago Bear fans remember Phil McConkey played for the Giants. Phil is a Naval Academy graduate, incredibly gifted. These 2 folks are just amazingly gifted, and they had a vision. They wanted to create a bank. There was a great opportunity for veterans. So they wanted to do that. I got involved in a conversation simply to provide counsel and thoughts. I'm not a finance guy. I'm dipping my toe in finance every day. It's fascinating, and I know to keep my mouth shut. Highly regulated, et cetera. So they asked me if I wanted to be an advisor. I said I'd love to. Fast forward, went from an idea in 2008 with 0 people. 2008, pretty ridiculous time to start a bank. Fast forward, we now have close to 100 employees. 50% of those are veterans of these wars. And these are young men and women who are coming back from this incredible period of combat, which is not going away. We can talk about that. They're getting their series license 763, partridge in a pear tree, at about 19 of them now. It's such a highly regulated business. They're going to college, they're getting their MBAs, and they are focused and they are disciplined. And when you walk into Academy Securities, domiciled in San Diego, not a bad place, domiciled right in Midtown Manhattan, that's where really the machinery, where the guts of the organization exists. You are walking into a disciplined, focused, gonna make it happen, we're gonna overcome barriers organization. And a tribute to that is that when we hire a veteran, we hire a Wall Street veteran so that we create these synergies. And the money that we make, we're still a very small business, but the money we make, we pour it back into this, what I call our regulatory posture, to make sure we're internally postured and compliant and doing the right things. And then we also increase our functionality. So it's an inward as well as an outward look. Everything we make goes back into making the company better. And our core social mission is to go find veterans and hire veterans and to facilitate this movement from service to nation to next phase, multiple phases of life. And I think we're doing that very, very well. And a small little tribute to that, in the New York City office, when you walk into the New York City office, we've got a chin-up bar. We're challenging each other. We're not losing the edge. What makes me mad, pisses me off a little bit, is the guy who has a chin-up record, is a Cornell grad. He's one of our Wall Street vets. He's not a military vet. I have told him I'm going to kick his ass. I'm not certain how I'm going to do that, but whatever. Hey, so again, thank you very much. Now I'm going to start moving, okay? Go back in November 1989. First, let me do this. what I want to do is have a conversation, okay? I don't want to chat, and everybody's got some ideas, and we had some questions that were being put into a little can. If we have a question or you want to talk about something, I want you to just pile in. I understand you guys are a raucous crowd. There's no pretense of civility in here. If you got something in your mind, you're just going to say it. Let's do that. Seriously, okay? Nobody in here is shooting at me. I'm okay. Okay, we can have a conversation. So if you want to yell at me, you've got a comment, that's great. So let's do that. But let me set the table. I want you to go back, if you will, to November 1989. The wall came down. Remember? And then 2 years later, November 89, December 91, what happened? Soviet Union collapsed. Well, what happened in between those two? We went to war. Desert Storm. We had a 100-hour ground campaign preceded by a 30-day air campaign. Significant event for America on the heels, still recovering for what is our validity in terms of our national security posture from Vietnam. And all of a sudden we go to war, and what happens? We crush an enemy within 100 hours of ground combat. Wall falls, we crush an enemy, Soviet Union collapses. Who in this room did not connect those dots? I connected those dots. I said, we're doing something pretty good, right? Well, here's the downside of that, and we all understand this. Suddenly, America was without competition, and the global order that we had been a part of, that we had created, went away, right? No competition. There was no competition, and we had just validated that on the heels of this incredible operation that had taken place from Saudi Arabia, liberating Kuwait, crushing Saddam's military, making a decision to stop that conflict, establish terms, no-fly zones over Iraq, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So America has purpose. It's got a national security posture that's moving in the right direction. The problem is we took the rudder out of the boat, and we became aimless, and we became opportunistic. So in hindsight, over the course of 25 plus years, almost 30 years, America has been a sole superpower. And over the course of the last 15, 16, 17 years while we've been in combat, we've been opportunistic. We've been fighting an existential threat. It's called violent extremism, which is not going to go away. It will morph, it will change, it will appear in our streets unless we're vigilant. My grandchildren, I have 4 of them. My grandchildren, your grandchildren are going to deal with this problem 2+ generations from now. It's not going to be. That must be addressed. But at the same time, we were the sole superpower. Well, what happens when you don't have competition? You get lazy. You get fat. You establish the rules. You walk in, you're the big guy. You walk in, you go, this is what we're going to do. Everybody says, yeah, that's right, we're going to do that. Because why? Because they said so. I got a little bit of New York in me, so allow that accent. I think that was a pretty good accent. So we've been a part of this. We've created this world. Yet right now, we are at a point. Look what happened yesterday. And I will not assume it's serendipitous that we chose this date. You guys knew that the president was going to meet with Ken. You said this. We were just lucky. This was good work on your part. The president just met with KJU. Kim Jong-un. His dad was KJI. I've been studying this problem. I've been on the peninsula half of my adult life. I've been studying this problem for 35 plus years. Nobody in this room, I don't think you even would have thought that the President of the United States would sit down with the chairman of the North Korean Communist Party, one-on-one. Unbelievable. Breathtakingly unique what just occurred. Irrespective of what comes out of it, because there will be some good that comes out of that. And what I'd like to try to do is kind of jump forward 5 years, and I'd love your input on this. That's why I'd love to have this be a conversation. What we think we're going to see on the peninsula in 5+ years, which really affects the region, which really affects the globe, which really affects Russia, which affects our relationship with the EU, the G7, all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to be able to have this conversation. Nobody would have guessed that that would have occurred. And it just happened. It just happened. So we are at a point today where we are taking a wrecking ball to the world order that brought us to the point of incredible success in November of 1989, and we've sustained it over the course of the subsequent 2+ decades, and we're now challenging that world order. The problem is the wrecking ball right now does not have another world order that's prepared to stand up in its place. That's our challenge. I don't know what the answer is. I do not suggest that treating those allies, the G7, that now have felt incredibly offended by our president, that was the right thing to do. You always hurt the ones you love. I mean, these are our allies. They've been our allies forever, and so we feel like we can poke them around a little bit. Shouldn't do that, but you do. So we have a challenge to our world order that's not dissimilar from what we saw in November 1989. So the answer is up to us to figure out what are we going to do going forward. What does that new world order look like? And we're on the precipice of that. I would suggest to you that we are today where we were back in November of 1989. And in 1989, we didn't know the path that we were going on. Let me put it in Army terms, in soldier terms. In 1989, in November, the day before the wall fell down, the United States Army had a presence in Berlin. And we've been there since post-war. And we had patrols that would go along the Berlin Wall in vehicles, up-armored vehicles, soldiers ready to go to combat along the wall to see if there are penetrations east to west, west to east. The wall falls. The next day, guess what it's a tactical example, but guess what the U.S. Army was doing the next day? The same thing. There was no wall, yet we're driving along, there's no wall, and we're looking for penetrations. There's no wall. Think we might want to change this? Well, keep doing that. So you can imagine what the privates were thinking. You know, this is the most effed up thing ever. You know, checking out, hey, Mom, I'm checking out this wall. Guess what? There's no wall. You watched the tube last night, wall's down. It doesn't exist. That's an example of how quickly the world turned, and we were going, oh, okay, figure it out. The problem is, we won a war, and the Soviet Union collapsed, and we went, we got this. What do we have? I don't know. That's our challenge. And that's where we are today. We've got the G7 looking at us. Really? We're going to treat us like that? I've always been there for you. Do you know that our air defense above North America, you know who ensures the safety of the airspace above North America? Totally integrated command in Colorado Springs, Canadian and U.S. A system of the most incredible capability in the world. Totally integrated. The Canadians are not there as kind of a gift from the United States, like we want you to occupy these spaces here in this Korean zone. They are full participants in the safety of our airspace of North America. Yet we're going to treat them, whatever the tariff rules are. I'm not a trade guy, I get that. But my point is, you don't necessarily have to bring your discussions into the vote. That's part of the challenge I have right now. Is that when you see the sausage being made, you don't want to eat the sausage. You know, the sausage is really good. The process is very ugly, and we're now in the middle of this process. And when you look at that process, you lose confidence that the result is going to be sustainable. That's what concerns me. We've got to have within the organization, within our State Department, within our Department of Defense, we have to be able to have a sustained effort to take our president's vision, which I think is absolutely correct. How he goes about it is up for debate, but you have to have folks that are at the right level sustaining that effort. So, we have a world that is VUCA. VUCA is a term, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's a term the Army came up with in November, well, not November, probably December or January of 1990. We said, we don't know what's going on in the world. We admit it. We don't know the world is this. It's a crazy place. And so when you look at it at night, you go, yeah, where there is dark, ideologies flow, migrate from the light to the dark. People migrate from the dark to the light. And unless you bring light to the dark, you're going to have problems. Unless we're ready to invest in dark swaths other than the GAF in Australia. Don't worry about that. They're doing fine. You know what the GAF is? GAFA, the big black spot in the middle of Australia. It's what the Aussies call it. I'm not going to be colorful, but the F is what you think it is, but it's the Great Australian FA. That's what they call it. It's the official name. Which is a little bit trivia. Trying to help, man. It's early in the morning. But we've got to spend time and money and make some prioritized decisions on where we want to engage, because that will be, inevitably, that will always be the case. So look at the Korean Peninsula. Isn't it a miracle? South Korea is absolutely marvel. And North Korea is an absolute disaster. Did you see the video that the president showed Chairman Kim? Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Yep. Head nods? Yes, no?
Yes.
I commented on that last night. Ambassador Nick Burns was on with me. He used to be the ambassador at NATO. Incredibly gifted guy, and he took great offense with that video. He said it dismisses South Korea, it dismisses Japan, it doesn't account for some of the other trusts that are ongoing in the region. What do you think, Marks? I went, couldn't disagree more. But this is all about Kim. We want Kim to start turning on the lights. Yeah, of course we love South Korea, but this is a message we're having communication with Kim. We've done some profiling. He's the biggest guy in the room. It's all about Kim. So the president put a little video in front, put an iPad on his lap, touched it, and said, here's this kind of wonderful little video on how the world can look. We want it to look like that. Or it can continue to go sideways. This was incredibly well done, and we can help them turn on the lights in North Korea. South Korea looks like an island, and it's just amazing. Just amazing. So this is the world that we're a part of right now. This is what we have to get our arms around. So you can walk through the various regions, you know what the different thrusts are. When I look at Asia, we could take this initiative in North Korea and it could be such a positive impact in Asia. I just got back from Indonesia. I was there about a month ago at the invitation of an opposition party leader who'd been elected president in 2014 until he wasn't president. They had a hanging Chad issue in the election in 2014. They had 20 million hanging Chads. They made up a bunch of stuff. He suddenly wasn't the president. Oh, okay. And he was encouraged by his political party, because he was a former military guy, to have a coup. They said, we're in that part of the world, I think we can figure out how to do coups. That's what's so wonderful about America. We don't do coups. You know, you think we're chaotic. We don't do coups. We had a coup in the mid-1800s. That was disastrous for us. Terrible disastrous. We're still healing from that. So we don't do coups. But Indonesia said, let's have a coup. Can you imagine the guys sitting around, they're all drinking, but most of them are Muslim, they're drinking wine. And he goes, let's have a coup. He goes, no, we're not going to do coups. That's not what we're going to do. So I was meeting with this guy in West Java, landed in Jakarta, went to West Java, there's no R&R. And China is taking over Indonesia. They're occupying, there's a new class in Indonesia called the Taipans, which are Chinese Indonesians. They have a higher social status than Indonesians. So they have the money, you can have the Maseratis, but you can't drive into them because the traffic is so slowly. And the competition in Indonesia is between China and Saudi Arabia, for obvious reasons, largest Muslim country in the world, 240 million Muslims. Muslims who are moderates. My host is a Muslim. His mother is a Christian. Father was Muslim. Sister is Catholic. Brother is Catholic. Other sister is Muslim. In the same house. They love Christmas. I asked them these guys, what did you guys do at Christmas? She said, oh, Muslims, Christmas is great. We had a good time. Ramadan's great too. We brought the Christians into Ramadan. We can do this. It's an example of how we can do this. We can have an influence, but America's not asleep at the switch. But I would say America is not paying attention to Indonesia specifically. Yet look where it is. North Australia, South China Sea. $5 trillion goes through the South China Sea in commerce every year. $5 trillion. And guess who protects the safe transit, the passage of that commerce? The United States Navy. Your Navy. And we ask you to pay for it. You pay for it. We don't ask anybody else in the world to pay for it. You go, no, we got this. We got this. In the region, that's an opportunity for the United States to cooperate. We could do that with the Chinese right now. The United States, by default, always competes. We have to have a sound footing. We have to be able, national security. Remember what the preamble of the Constitution says? To provide for the common defense. The verb selection is very precise by our founders. Provide, non-negotiable. Don't talk to me about it. You're going to provide it for the common defense. And then promote. Do what you can. Promote. Clean as many teeth as you can. Let's have health care that make it worse. Promote what you can afford. Whatever it looks like. Whatever your nurses. Whatever care is available. Promote the general welfare. Those are verb selections that we're accidental. We have to provide for the common defense. And our nation does that. It's just phenomenal. So we do that. Our Navy does that. The Chinese Navy used to be a brown water Navy, not expeditionary. China built this huge wall because they didn't want people coming in. It was all about protecting China, the kingdom. They're expeditionary. They have a Navy that can go over the horizon. It's modern. It's incredible. They're building islands in the South China Sea. I got that. They're going to militarize those islands. I got that. Can't put that genie back in that bottle. We should go to the Chinese and say, look, why don't we work out an arrangement where we patrol and you patrol this commerce that's coming across the South China Sea? Can we do that? Because at the deck plate level, as my Navy buddies would say, at the deck plate level, for young sailors, JGs, junior officers, junior grade officers, make things happen, we could start building trust. And guess what? The risk is not that high. We could do that. You don't build trust in the midst of crisis. So we could have cooperation with China that benefits us both and allows us to start to reshape what we think this world needs to look like. The national security strategy that we live with today, just published, there's a thing called 2+3. 2+3. China, Russia, then the three are violent extremism, Iran, and North Korea, which is really violent extremism and nukes. So it could be 2+2, but it's 2+3, national security strategy. That states very clearly where we need to put our emphasis. In other words, America can, do multiple tasks at the same time, accomplish great things for this nation. We can say advance democracy where it wants to be advanced. And we can also advance what we think, the world, what we think, and get partners that agree to what we think this new world can look like. One final thought on the summit. You're going to hear a lot of folks. Let me take a step back. I got a hard time. I was talking to Jim Lipton. Thank you for coming up and saying hi this morning. Thanks for your service. Thanks for your son's service. You made the comment, regardless how, I'm going to paraphrase, regardless of how you feel about our president or policy, it's the president of the United States. We should show deference and respect for presidents. We can disagree. I take issue, and I made this comment the other day publicly, I take issue when people talk about the president and don't call him the president. We get very, very dismissive about the president. I said, look, regardless of what you think. Look, I'm political, but I'm not partisan. I've served every president that we've had since Richard Nixon. And it's the president of the United States. And I was talking to a guy who kept referring to Trump. I said, okay, when this conversation's over, you're either going to say President Trump or I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm glad I didn't, because he probably would have kicked my ass. But I would have made my point, and that's okay. Before I was a white-haired man, I was a redhead, so I got in a lot of trouble. My nose was broken a lot. So the point is, let's look at what we're trying to achieve, and let's get other nations to agree to that. So what the meeting is going to do now on the heels of this summit is they're going to say, look, yeah, we might have been able to start moving the ball down the road toward denuclearization and go through the modality and see what we talk about. But by the way, Kim is a horrible dictator. He kills his own people. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, how can you engage with a dictator like that? This meeting is not about human rights. We can put human rights on the table. This is not about human rights. This is about trying to avert a nuclear disaster. In the world of nukes, having 60 nukes, which we think Kim has, our intelligence estimates put it about that level, and the capability he has to deliver those with missiles, to marry those two capabilities up and to deliver those. In the game of nukes, in our arsenal of nukes, in our triad, it's a distinction without a difference. You got one, you pop that nuke, the world cascades in a way that I cannot anticipate. Nor can you. And you might not be able to control it. Okay? This is about trying to achieve some definition of what the nuclear capability on the Korean Peninsula is going to look like, and whether it's denuclearized or in some way controlled. We'll figure that out. I have my own opinions. I'm sure you have your own opinions as well. Let me stop there and see if anybody's got questions that you want to ask. We can do that. We're going to break the protocol. We do that. We don't need to moderate. I can just answer.
Question. How do you feel about North Korea having nuclear power plants as opposed to nuclear weapons?
Yeah, that's the issue. I would think it'd be fine. Peaceful nuclear power, as long as it's controlled. And, you know, the father of American nuclear power was the United States Navy, and we know how to do that. So in order to achieve that capability, the United States, I would hope, would be a part of that, which also allows you to conduct inspections and make sure, because you have uranium hunters all over the place. You don't hide nuclear capabilities. They chirp and they glow, and you can kind of find them. Hide it in the closet, dear. The closet's alive. You know, I think we found that thing. Kim is going to have a hard time obfuscating, but he knows how to do that. Kim knows how to lie, he knows how to cheat, he knows how to kill, he knows how to play stall ball. We really can't trust this guy. We cannot trust this guy, but we can. Obviously, our president is stroking big time. He's honorable, he's funny. You know, I love Dennis Rodman. Rodman's going to be the U.S. ambassador in Pyongyang. According to Spencer Wilcox. Spencer dropped that. We were at the conversation. Oh, that was great. Just as long, Mr. Ambassador, can you take that thing out of your lip? I'm okay with that. And you can make a bad choice when you start sticking things through the nose. So I'd be perfectly, Jennifer, I'd be perfectly fine with that. If the United States said, yep, we want to be a part of that. I mean, that's part of this new future that we can have. Good? Yes, sir.
General, thanks for the insights. Thanks for the service. You said at one point that the president's vision is absolutely correct. And I'm curious what you understand the vision to be and why it's absolutely correct.
Yeah, the vision that this president is, let me say this when I'm going, this is when my wife would say it. You know, and my children would say, Dad, if you have to say that was a joke, it wasn't. So if they say something funny, you guys don't laugh, I'm going to say it.
You might earn an egg.
You know, I know. I don't want to do that. The president's vision is to bring North Korea into the world that is a global partner. And Kim has achieved that very first step. Father and grandfather could not do that. My suggestion is the president was able to achieve this entree that nobody knew where to start. I think it's going to be absolutely shattering visions that we've had, or at least policies that we've had in place for decades. It's really challenging a whole bunch of something. Simply because he had news. I have posited that, totally hypothetical, but I hope you would at least challenge it. Any president that we've had over the course of the last 20 years, okay? There's 41, President Clinton, and we've got President Bush, 43, and we've got President Obama. Any one of those presidents, if we had ascribed to North Korea having a nuclear capability, I would have done the same thing as President Trump. I would assume. What we had were presidents that were confronted with different facts. So we can't blame anybody with the facts that they had in front of them, because they instituted policies that they thought would arrest or at least moderate this path toward nuclear capability. they all failed. And let's be frank. The Green Framework in '94 failed. North Korea turned the corner, broke out in official terms in '06. It was the first nuclear explosion in '06. 12 years after the Green Framework, failed. So the vision is, we've got to control this. We're going to talk about denuclearization. This is a stretch goal. We've all been a part of stretch goals before. Let's get the team on board and see if we can achieve that. Guess what happens? Well, we didn't achieve that, but we got close. I'm suggesting that it's probably not going to be denuclearization. Kim's going to sit down and say, why would I get rid of my nukes? I got to the table because my calling card was this nuke. I dropped this nuke on the table, had my name and my email address. And so I got 59 more of those things. That's why I'm here. He's not going to give those up. But there can be a protocol that allows him to be in a position, and for us to be in a position, and the 6 parties, that is the construct for Korea, and that's going to change as well. It might be irrelevant at some point. In fact, I would suggest it is, because it's a nuclear power. It's just not the 6 parties. China, Russia, South Korea, North Korea, Japan, the United States. It's a global challenge. It's a global challenge, because he can reach with ICBMs. We've given him that capability. We've already demonstrated. It's a rough and tumble ICBM, but it's an ICBM. So what's the relevance of a region? It's not a regional problem anymore, it's a global problem. So I think the president is saying, we've got to fix this problem or it's not going to go away. This is a different North Korea than it was 2-3 years ago. That's the vision. I think that is absolutely the vision we need to have. We've got to eliminate that threat. We've got to live with that threat. There have to be protocols in place for us to trust that it's not getting worse, that the threat is not going to grow. There are some shared values about what we think this North Korea can look like as a player globally. And then I would stay on that question. I would say unification is not going to happen. You're not going to have a unified peninsula with the capital in Seoul, nor are you going to have the capital in China. And China's got a big role. I don't think the peninsula is going to be unified. My mind on that has changed over the course of years. I thought inevitably that we have to work something out. Nukes, growth, separate. The chasm between the South and the North is just so phenomenal. What South Korea has achieved post-1953 is a miracle. And they've done coups. They've done coups. They've got a former president now in jail. I mean, they got some problems. It's a miracle. It's phenomenal. The industry, the smarts, the love of life, Koreans are the most incredible allies. It's phenomenal, people. Phenomenal. I hope that answers you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you think this current policy incentivizes other nations to forego things that we value in terms of trade, innovation, or trade that in for just seeking a deal so that they can have a place to table? Is this going to teach other world leaders just to seek nuclear capabilities?
Repeat the question, please.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. I'll repeat it. The question was, is the example that North Korea has achieved, which is a conversation with the President of the United States with some possibility of some sanctions being lifted, I'm paraphrasing obviously, because he created this nuclear capability and then said, come talk to me. That now is a threat that he has, that his threat allowed him to come to the table. That now is the model for future folks who want to do the same. I would say absolutely. I think the rest of your question is Kim gonna, I think the rest of your question is, will Kim give up his aspirations as a result of a ton of money coming his way? I would say, if you were going to bifurcate that, the choices were, okay, Kim, here's a ton of money, forever and ever, we're just going to pay a ton of money, or security guarantees. He's going to take security guarantees. He doesn't want to go away. He's not term limited. He doesn't want to go away. He understands that the modernization of North Korea is an incredible threat to his machine. He knows that. I start letting the cat out of the bag, you know, and start having some challenge. But I think he needs to be wise enough to think through it, change his behavior. Want to be there for everybody. Great working together. We love it. You know? That's part of it too. Wow.
It's a little bit different part of the world, but I feel it's similar. The Iranian nuke deal. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, the Iranian nuke deal was the question. Again, different circumstances. I think the Iranian nuke deal, when they struck the Iranian nuke deal, there were some gaps. And the thing that bothered me about the Iranian nuke deal, now, bear in mind, the U.S. has walked away from that, so it's not relevant to us now, but it's relevant to all the other signatories, was we gave them a breakout by 2025. In other words, there was a sunset clause where you could have nukes of different sizes and shapes and capabilities by 2025. We signed up for that. Israel didn't. Closest friend in the region. Israel didn't. So the United States doesn't like that, and I agree. Why would we sign up for that? The other thing was the inspection protocol. And the inspection protocol of the Iran deal required announcing at least minimally 30 days in advance of an inspection to known sites. And there were limits to those known sites. So you couldn't have unannounced inspections to military locations where missiles exist and stockpiles exist, etc. You couldn't do that. Couldn't ask permission. You could ask permission, but say, no, it's not what we contract. But these deals or contracts, everybody in this room understands the four corners of the contract. And there are specifications, incentives to do good behavior, incentives when you get out of line. We're going to tell you what you can't do. But you want to keep the ball rolling with the inspections. So most elements in these inspections do not terminate, invalidate the contract. You accept the mistake and then you move forward. There are things called, I'll get to your question in just a second, there are things called TLIs, treaty limited items. So this, whatever this is a treaty limited item. You must have this or you may not have more than 12 of them, whatever. Oh, we found 16 of them. You got 4 too many. Mostly, the answer is, oh, I didn't know they were in that foot locker. Oh, I'm sorry. Who put those there? You don't punish them. You just say, okay, here's the protocol. You got to take these things. In the military, it's called frustrated cargo. You can't get it on an airplane because it's dangling, stuff's dangling off the side. The airplane don't crash. You move it to the side, you tighten it up, and you get it back on the airplane. So you find those TLIs, you take it to the side, you deal with them, but the plane keeps rolling down the strip and it takes off. So, yes, ma'am.
So when you say the reunifications are not going to happen in the are you saying ever or in the near future? And if you're saying ever, why not? And do you ever foresee with the globalization and modernization of what may inevitably be coming to North Korea, the fall of and collapse of North Korean regime of itself would ever be in the future?
Yeah, that's a marvelous question. I'm by nature optimistic. The question, I'm sorry. The question was, is the peninsula, Korean Peninsula, ever going to be reunified? Is there any scenario or possibility where the peninsula would be unified? And if it would be, I guess that's your question. Yeah, do you think the North Korean regime is going to collapse, which would be an incentive to reunify? I mean, that could be the starter for a reunification effort. Doug's question. I hate to say it's never going to be reunified, but I can't foresee. I am incapable of jumping 60 or 100 years in the future and say North Korea is going to be an equivalent economic power with this amazing growth. They've closed the gap between what is occurring today, every day, in magnificent strides, economic advancements in South Korea, that they're going to be close enough that they're going to say, you know, we really are the same people. I think the distance is too great. So I don't foresee it. So my short answer is it's not going to happen. What that might mean, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. That's kind of the best I can do. I would love to see that happen, but right now, China has absolutely zero interest in having a unified Korea with the capital in Seoul. They have very little interest in that. China would have to be, we'd have to be able to adjust our policies with China. The world would have to adjust its policies with China and learn how to cooperate so we can trust each other. We can say, what's wrong with having a unified peninsula? If you want some security guarantees, we can give that to you. We'll have to figure out what that looks like. I don't think the regime is going to collapse. In fact, I think the regime is hardened as a result of this summit. It has validated Kim. This is a different Kim that goes back to Pyongyang. He's back in Pyongyang. This is a different Kim. He's been on the world stage. He's had selfies. He's wandered through Singapore. He got a shopping list taken care of. With the flipping here. That's just what one of He's got to deliver now. He's got to deliver. He says, look, I've got the promise of turning North Korea into something that we've never seen before, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm still in charge. You guys good with that? On the average North Korean, I've had this steady diet. I've seen this. I've seen this. I've seen this. I'm either beaten down and I go, I can't imagine a world without Kim in charge. Or I go, wait, maybe there's something out there that I'm not aware of. I don't see the latter, I see the former. That he has solidified his position, he is now deified beyond where he was deified 3 days ago. So I don't see the collapse. That's the biggest nightmare, as a soldier, that's the biggest nightmare in South Korea, was the collapse of the North. And 25 million people in the North, 50 million in the South, 25 million in the North migrate south. They're not going to China. But the second that collapsed, it's not an overnight event. It would occur over time. It would start to crumble. China would be in there with forces in a heartbeat, and they'd go straight to the DMZ and they'd hold everything. The concern is if China could not do that, North Korea collapses, and you've got close to 20 million people coming into South Korea. How do you absorb 20 million people who have no reality, no sense of reality that is your reality? Clueless. Clueless. The integration, if you thought the integration of East Germany and West Germany was significant, it was an economic disaster, and they marched their way through it. It was an environmental disaster, and they marched their way through it. It's a miracle. I don't know that miracle could take place in that part of the world. I do know the Korean people are magnificent. They probably make it happen, but it would be very, very painful. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. We were talking about before the program began. It's not about Korea, but it's other world. How they agreed to, one of the four things they agreed to was that they were going to return the fallen American soldiers and the remaining back to the camps. We were talking about it for 70 years. How in the world know where anyone is, who they were, and especially a country like that that's, trying to feed their people. So how do you do that?
It's a great question. The question was, what are the modalities of the POW and the MIA activities? Yeah, but you still have people who are missing in action.
No,
Yeah. In fact, we had an Air Force officer missing in action who was living in California. Did you see that on the news? How about a bonehead? Definition of bonehead. So we found his ass. There is a process. There is a process. We have had, and the United States Army runs this thing. It's called the POW-MIA. It's called the Joint Task Force on POW-MIA. We've done it. The modalities are very, very precise. You have, even though it's been 70 years, every unit that was engaged in combat in Korea has a record of their activities. It's a requirement. It happens. Units just don't go do things and then they come back and go, it was exhilarating. You quantify it. So you got a record of every engagement. And we know who was in those units. And we know who came home. So we know what the baseline looks like. So you know who's missing. Folks are still unaccounted for. We don't know their status. And unless we can confirm that they were killed, the presumption is they're missing. Unless you can confirm they're killed, the presumption is they're missing. So we know how to do that. We've been doing that in Vietnam for years, for decades. It's amazing. Our DNA records are incredible. So the point is that we've been doing this in North Korea. I was a senior intel guy in Korea. We sent what we call SEAL Hunt. They were recovery casualty teams that went forward. And we would prescribe the exact locations where they were because we knew what units were there based on the records, and we knew what aircraft were flying in support. Attack missions, support missions, whatever. And if they went down, you then go back to eyewitnesses and you go, did you see your wing buddy? Did you see what happened? That happened. That was recorded. And in many cases now, those great veterans are no longer with us. But we have those records. And we have family members. Let me give you a very personal story. A very dear friend of mine, father was in the Air Force and was shot down in Vietnam. And his wingman did not see what happened. So he took rounds, and then they were peeling off, and they didn't see if he parachuted out, or blew up, they don't know. So he was listed as MIA. You can imagine the hell that his mother, his mom, went through. Was my husband killed? Man, we don't know. It was incredibly difficult for her. On a personal level, every time the doorbell went, oh, my hubby's. Can you imagine going through that? The husband's, your dad's coming back. So this friend of mine went through the process of getting his father declared KIA. He had to, so he could close the door on that chapter. It took him years to do that. So we don't do that. We don't. So he went through the process of confirmation. People, he was an Army officer. His buddy was an Army officer. And he was doing this. So it gave him an insight into who to talk to and how to get it done. Got it done. It took him about 12, 15 years. Finally got his father declared KIA. They then found his remains in Vietnam. What they found was literally the size of the tip of my finger. But it was a positive 100% DNA match. Had an amazing funeral. So we know how to do that, and the challenge in North Korea is we've been doing that. We've got the system in place. It would be wonderful if we could do that more aggressively, because North Korea right now only allows us, as I indicated, very few visits, very precise. Vietnam, on the other hand, is very robust. We have folks in Vietnam all over, north and south, all of Vietnam, all the time, all the time. And it's quite risky business. Yeah, so it's a great question. Very personal. Yes, sir.
No, General Marks, we'll take one more question.
In international waters in the South China Sea, China has established military installations on some islands. It has gone uncontested so far. How do you see the future of that playing out?
Yeah, the United, well, you're not going to contest those islands. I mean, they created these islands in many cases, like, they have some pieces of terrain there that are always under dispute. Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, China, they claim different parts of the surroundings and things like that. But they've also created some islands. The United States has to acknowledge that. The United States has made diplomatic overtures only to say, you guys can't do that. China, thank you very much for your interest. We're going to do this. The key thing is if we can cooperate with the Chinese in areas that allow us to have more open communications, and I've given a suggestion on how that might go. The fact that they have islands in the South China Sea now can be used for purposes that we kind of see or do. See what I mean? You're going to do replenishment ops. Why don't you do that out of that? And of course, you want to have self-defense. I got that. But if this becomes an what type of munitions are you putting on it? You'd like to know. Because if that could be very easily part of a very aggressive step on their part. Certainly how we use it. Maybe what we call our friendly. But I think we can address that. We can cooperate in ways that allow us to ascribe the better tendencies to use of the than the aggressive. But we haven't done it. So the assumption is we're going to compete with you guys and then we know that's what.
General Marks, we let our members submit questions online, and so we have a couple of quick questions here. North Korea has a reputation for breaking all of its promises. What proof is there that they would start keeping their promises now?
There's no proof. The short answer is none. We have to be able to start building trust with these guys. We have to be able to go through the facilities. We have to be able to at least baseline what their nuclear capabilities are and their missile capabilities. We haven't baselined that. Before you can go check on it, before you can measure anybody, you have to know what you're measuring. We don't know what we're measuring, so we can do that.
And City Club member Patrick Nash asked, given our president's propensity with respect to the truth, what would you look for with respect to any announcement to know that it's a good deal for the United States? I'm assuming this is about Korea and the summit.
Yeah. Well, that's a political question. I don't know
is fine.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I mean, the president tweets all the time. I don't pay any attention to it. I've got a Twitter, is it called a handle or an account? And I don't use it. So what the president tweets is fine. I'm really interested in what our administration and our secretaries and various cabinet positions are doing to ensure that. So I'd love to see that we have inspectors at position X, and they found item Y, and this is the inventory, this is the number, and this is what the capabilities are, as opposed to a proclamation by the president and however many characters you can have on a Twitter feed.
I'd like to ask everyone to join me in thanking General Marks for his presentation today.